Mr. Chairman, I think it's a little after 2. You want to give folks one more minute?
Yeah, let's give them 11:03, maybe an 11:04. Okay, let's get rolling. Let's call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Election Assistance Commission Board of Advisors. I'm Michael Yaki, the chair. And we will start with the call of the roll by our secretary, Allison McLaughlin. Allison?
First name on the list is Tina Barton.
Present.
David Byrne.
Present.
Elliot Burke. Kathy Bernier.
Present.
Jim Condos.
Present.
Jim Dixon.
Present.
John Fogerty.
Present.
Don Gray.
Present.
Mark Guthrie.
Present.
Ricky Hatch.
Present.
Chris Herren.
Present.
Liz Howard.
Present.
Keith Ingram.
Here.
Daniel Ivy Soto.
Present.
Sarah Ball Johnson,
Present.
Neil Kelly, David Cladney, Linda Lamone,
Here.
Dean Logan,
Here.
Tim Mattice,
Present.
I am present. Jeffrey McLeod, Gregory Moore,
Present.
Linda Neindick,
Here.
Larry Norden, Paul Pate, Sachin Pavithran,
Present.
Richard Pilger, Sean Rahmeyer,
Present.
Mark Ritchie, Jane Scholler,
Present.
Barbara Simons,
Present.
Philip Stark,
Present.
Michael Wynn, and Michael Yaki is here. I'll call the roll again for those that I missed earlier. Elliot Burke,
I'm present. Sorry, I was on mute.
Neil Kelly,
Did you get?
I do have you, Elliot. David Cladney, Jeff McLeod, Larry Norden, Paul Pate,
Jim Condos for Paul Pate, proxy.
Richard Pilger, Mark Ritchie, Michael Wynn. And I believe we may also have, do we have proxies for Neil Kelly and David Cladney?
Yes, Linda Lamone for Neil Kelly.
And Michael Yaki for David Cladney. And we also have Larry Norden for Barbara Simons.
The other way around.
Sorry, whatever it is. Okay,
You have a quorum present, Mr. Chair.
thank you very much. I'd like to recognize Commissioner Hicks for some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Greetings and welcome. I am Thomas Hicks, a commissioner with the United States Election Assistance Commission. I'm also the designated federal officer for the Commission's Board of Advisors, which is meeting today to hold executive office elections. We've been working under these conditions for some time and continue to learn and adjust as needed. So thanks again for meeting through this format and for your patience. The importance of the Board of Advisors, as you know, we are now 62 days away from the general election, and that means an even admit of upheaval caused by the global pandemic. The work of the election administration remains a vital function of our democracy. As a resource for state and local officials, the agency relies on the work of this board to guide it through the adoption of things like the Voluntary Voting System Guidelines 2.0. The board is also vital in its capacity to establish subcommittees and make recommendations. And so I'm eager to hear the report from today's special committee on the United States Postal Service. The Board of Advisors elections is also because of these vital functions that the leadership of this board plays an important role. Board members today will have an opportunity to hear from candidates and weigh their qualifications and merits, to state their case about how they plan to lead this board and work with the agency. Again, I understand conducting this election with new technology is different and does not afford the advantages of meeting in person. So I very much appreciate your flexibility and perseverance to fulfill your responsibilities. After announcing the election results, we will also hear from a special committee on the United States Postal Service issues. These issues have dominated the election news cycle, and we appreciate the work of the subcommittee members and the work that they've spent to contribute to this discussion on mail-in balloting. The EAC has played an important role in assisting state and local election officials through the Interagency Joint COVID Working Group and has led efforts to disseminate a series of documents that provide guidance for state, local, tribal, and territorial election officials on how to administer and secure election infrastructure in light of COVID-19. We will continue to work with our partners at the federal level and across private industry to ensure the safety and most secure system of voting. As the primary season winds down, we have the benefit of hindsight to inform how we prepare for November. We know that more Americans than ever are voting by mail or absentee ballots. At the EAC, we have worked with the states to have a transition to vote by mail in the best practices to be shared. The state or jurisdictions that had previously worked a full vote by mail had the luxury of time to make this transition. Election administration currently expanding the vote by mail operations, however, do not enjoy this same luxury. Learning from their colleagues will be crucial to successfully implementing procedures to handle this anticipated surge in mail and absentee ballot demand this year. Thank you again for all that you do, and I turn it back over to the chairman.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hicks. Madam Secretary, I want to note that Michael Wynn has now joined us. Michael Wynn, can you confirm that you're on?
I am. I'm sorry for the tardiness. Excuse me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Steve, could you please put the agenda on the screen? Okay, you should also all have hard copies of it as well. I'd like a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion. Sorry, what? Motion by Mr. Hatch. Is there a second?
Second, Michael.
Second by Mr. Nguyen. Any objection to the adoption of the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is adopted. I hope you all received a copy of the minutes from the June 16th BOA meeting. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the April 16th BOA meeting. June 16th BOA meeting, excuse my language.
Motion to adopt the minutes.
Moved and seconded. Is there an objection to the adoption of the approval of the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are adopted. Before we begin, there's one piece of housekeeping I need to do, which is I need to appoint, according to the bylaws, an election certification committee. I'm appointing David Byrne as the chair, along with Chris Herren and Liz Howard as the other two committee members. They will be receiving the tabulated ballots for review from Ms. Joyner and Mr. Rayburn. And now we're going to turn it over to our general counsel, Mr. Rayburn, for a review of the election procedures. Mr. Rayburn?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Rayburn. I'm the new general counsel for the Election Assistance Commission. I've been able to meet most of you over the years in elections, but this is my first time with this board, so I wanted to introduce myself. And previously, I worked for the Georgia Secretary of State's office and the Tennessee Secretary of State's office. And it's a great pleasure of mine to now be working for the EAC. We've got 3 elections to hold today for 3 officers, chair, vice chair, and secretary. The secretary office only had 1 nominee, so we will handle that differently. We will do a voice vote to affirm that nominee. But for chair and vice chair, we will be holding separate elections on separate ballots through this meeting. The main method for most of you, since you all are logged in, will be a Zoom pop-up survey. So built into Zoom is the capability for us to hold surveys, and we can also do that anonymously. So we will use that functionality, and when we begin voting, you will have a survey first for chair with the 2 choices for chair, and you will make that selection on your screen and hit submit to cast your vote. For any of you that are not logged into a computer or logged in to Zoom such that the pop-up appears, you can email your vote to Associate Counsel Amanda Joyner. I've sent an email around with that email address, but it is ajoyner, Joiner, @eac.gov. So those are the two methods for casting your vote. We will take those results for any person that has to send an email in with their vote. We will aggregate those and anonymize those so that secret ballot is maintained when we give that over to the Election Certification Committee. If you have a proxy, I think we've already discussed, there are 4 proxies that were properly designated prior to the meeting. You will also need to email Amanda Joyner your proxy. Please include your name, who you have a proxy for, and then the individual vote that's being cast for that proxy. When you vote yourself, please do so through the Zoom tool with the pop-up, but for proxies, you will be sending that email. So that's it. We are going to have, before each vote, brief comments, introductions from each of the candidates, and then we will proceed with voting. We've allotted 10 minutes for each vote. We might not need that. We'll be kind of taking the pulse to make sure everyone was able to cast correctly, proxies were able to cast, and emails were sent. And we may move along quicker than 10 minutes in between each vote if we're able. So please don't log out of Zoom, don't walk away. You're welcome to, of course, turn off your video if you do need to walk away for a second, but we'll be moving fairly quickly through that process. I'll be happy to take any questions, but if not, I'll give it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any questions from anyone?
This is David Byrne. Can Allison McLaughlin, the secretary, report out the number of attendees and proxy votes?
I can. The number of attendees. I have 28 attending and 4 proxy votes, which leaves 3 not present.
Thank you.
And for everyone's information, these elections are plurality winner, so a majority is not needed.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we will turn to the office of the chair. The 2 candidates are Jim Condos, the Vermont Secretary of State, and myself. I will recognize Mr. Condos for a 5-minute statement, if he so chooses to use all 5.
Thank you, Chairman
Mr. Condos?
Yaki. Thank you, Chairman Yaki. I have been nominated for the chair of EAC Board of Advisors, and I'm asking for your vote. My background, pretty simple. City councilor, 18 years. Vermont State Senator, 8 years. I chaired the Senate Education Committee and the Senate Government Operations Committee, which has oversight over elections and Secretary of State. I was also on the National League of Cities Board of Directors, and I recently served as president of the National Association of Secretaries of State. Currently, I'm working with my co-chair, national co-chair, Kim Wyman from Washington, on the CSG Overseas Voting Initiative. I do understand how federal, state, and local governments work. I was told by the current EAC chair that there's a tradition of vice chairs moving up to chair, secretaries moving up to vice chair. And although when I asked where it was in the bylaws, I found out it was not in the bylaws. In fairness to all my colleagues, I was nominated for the role of chair, and I am eager to serve. I am proud of the initiatives we have taken in Vermont. We have mandated paper ballots. We have 45 days of early, no excuse voting period. We have a post-election audit with high statistical confidence. We have online voter registration, same-day voter registration, automatic voter registration, election night reporting systems. And in the MIT Election Performance Index state rankings, I am most proud of this ranking because we Started in 2012 after my first general election as 38th in the nation. In 2014, we had moved up to 16th in the nation. And then in 16, we moved up to #1. And this past year, we were just not, for 2018, we came in at #3. The other two ahead of us had new systems that they had just put in place. From a standpoint of voting rights, we've instituted a new state-of-the-art accessible voting system. It is not just for visually impaired, it is fully ADA compliant. In this general election, we have already moved to mail a ballot to all active registered voters. We just came off a very successful primary where we had 70% of the votes that were cast by mail. Well, excuse me. My office has worked with many organizations on elections over the years. Brennan Center for Justice, the Pew Charitable Trust, the Center for Election Innovation, the Center for Civic Design, the Main Street Alliance, League of Women Voters, among the many. Frankly, I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. This election year is like no other that we have experienced in our lifetimes, and probably won't in the future. The challenges to the integrity and security of our elections, real or perceived, have increased significantly. From facing how to conduct a presidential election already taxing during normal times, we now add in a global pandemic. To the daily work of states and federal partners fending off increasingly sophisticated foreign attacks on our elections, how we address these challenges individually as states and nationally as a country will have implications far beyond November. The stakes could not be higher. I believe having a chief state election official as chair of the Board of Advisors during a presidential year, especially one under the circumstances we are grappling with, is critically important. I am ready to take on those responsibilities. I cannot underscore enough the importance of having an election official leading this body during a presidential election. We are on the front lines. We know firsthand what is happening in other states, and we know what is and what is not needed from the EAC. While the other Board of Advisor members provide valuable input and are dedicated to their service of this board, EAC's main mission is to assist us, the election officials. We need to finally move forward with the VVSG 2.0 along with the requirements and test assertions. It has been an extremely long and very deliberative process, but we are so close to the end at this point. I think the EAC has a number of excellent resources for state and local election officials, including the new cyber training provided by the Center for Tech and Civil Life, free to any election official who signs up. The EAC also just launched the National Poll Worker Recruitment Day to help state and local officials recruit poll workers. I hope everyone on this board who is able will be serving as a poll worker or assist their local election office in November. This is in addition to a compilation of all COVID resources developed by the EAC and other organizations like NAS, NASED, and NCSL. These are excellent resources. We need to be marketing them to all of our members as much as possible. Many local election officials are not aware of what is available, and that is a shame. The EAC is of tremendous value and importance to the state as we engage in this diligent work upholding our democratic process for all Americans. As Vermont's Secretary of State, I know firsthand the work from micro to macro that goes into successful conduct of elections. I have served as president of NAS, as I said, and currently serve as the co-chair of the CSG Overseas Voting Initiative. My expertise as an election official, my history of proven leadership, and my comprehensive understanding of the challenges facing election officials across the country would make me a tremendous asset to the EAC and to the states as chair. We are fortunate to have two committed people running to serve as chair of this board. I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I now recognize myself. Members of the BOA, many of you have known me from my service on this board for the past 5 years. I remember when I first came on the board, the first thing I did was try to run for office and was gently tapped on the shoulder by a commissioner and a then chair to say, well, this is a way we kind of do things, so we're going to wait your turn. And 3 years later, I became secretary. and then vice chair and now chair. These are unusual times. I think that's a given. We wouldn't be meeting here via Zoom if it weren't. And we wouldn't have elections that normally would have occurred in March postponed until September. And because of that, I decided to try and uphold that tradition of what I inherited of the rotation of officers. But in consultation with both my vice chair and my secretary, we decided we should ask to hold over until the spring so that no one is denied a full term. But in addition to that, I think that I hope that all of you know that as chair, I've tried to do things a little bit differently than we've done before. This is the first time a chair has appointed special committees on election security. In fact, 2 of them. I just appointed the special committee on the Postal Service, which will be making a report later. And I think that for a lot of us, and I'm sorry that COVID, among many other things that it's done, interrupted sort of our path forward. Because what I really wanted to do is see if there's a way that we as members of the BOA could have a more active role with regard to each other, to the advisors, and to the commission as a whole. And I think too often we tend to only show up once a year, vote on some resolutions, talk about the VVSG again, and then go our separate ways. And I've been trying to change that. And what I intend to do, if I get your vote, is use the remaining few months to sort of offer a proposal for restructuring. And by that, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go with people, a lot of you out there who have wanted to try and do some restructuring and do things like diversify the committees. One idea is to create the committees and have a new standing committees with the chairs being members of sort of a new EAC executive board. So more people have a voice and more people have a role and more people have the ability, if they want to participate more fully in what it is that we do rather than just once a year at our annual meeting. So these are the things I'd like to see happen, but it only works if you are involved. Many of you have expressed that. Many of you have wanted to be involved. I've tried to encourage that. I haven't been perfect because we're just starting out for the first time, but I think we're getting better. And I'd love to be able to leave office next year knowing that we have a proposal before us to make this a more active, ongoing, year-round body. I think that I'm not going to argue against Mr. Condo's credentials. There are many. I've been on this board for 5 years. I've been a member of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights for 15 years, where voting rights has been part of who I am. I've been an elected official. I've had to deal with this and campaigns. We've all done this. What we all share is a commitment to trying to better the election process in this country. And I think that I've demonstrated my willingness to push the envelope and get us, the board, more involved. And I ask for your vote. I thank you very much for your vote last year and your consideration. Thank you very much, and let's move on. So that will conclude these statements. Mr. Rayburn?
Okay, at this time, we'll actually hold the vote. So Steve, if you will send out the poll. Everyone on your screen, you should have a poll for chair. You'll see the 2 candidates. Select the candidate you want, and then there's a submit button that runs the very bottom of the poll. And when you click that, I believe it goes away.
I'm not seeing a poll.
Check in the bottom of the screen where it might be hiding a little bit in the corner, bottom right.
So in the bottom of the screen where you see the mute button, the stop video participants, there should be a polls button as well. It's right next to the chat. If you click that, it might pop up. Professor Stark, if you still have issues.
Yes, thank you. I see it now. Appreciate it. Thanks. I'm on a tablet and it's in a different place, but thank you.
And if anyone else is having trouble, please let me know.
I'm having some trouble, Jim.
Okay, did the poll appear?
I haven't found it yet.
Okay. So
Dennis is having trouble finding the poll.
Sure. So at the bottom or at the part of the Zoom tool that has stop video, mute, chat box, you should see a poll icon. If you click that, it should bring up the poll. If you're still having issues, proceed to email your vote to Amanda Joyner if you're not able to bring up the poll.
Yeah, I'll email.
Okay, that will work.
Forgive me for intruding, but I think if people have joined through their browser rather than through the app, it might not show up. I think there's an issue with breakout rooms that way as well. I'm on a tablet and it showed up as a tiny little green emblem saying poll in progress at the top of the screen.
That's good information. Thank you, Dr. Stark. This is also a reminder if you have a proxy to make sure you are also emailing Amanda Joyner the proxy vote. All right, I'm going to check at this time. Has anyone not been able to use the poll or emailed in their vote? So is there anyone out there that's still needing to vote?
This is Greg Moore. I'm just now sending my email.
This is Jim Dixon. I'm about to send my email.
Okay, great. Thank you both.
Are there any other members who are on who were not called during the roll?
Mr. Chair, if you are comfortable, I think we could move on to, now that it seems all votes have been cast, we could move on to statements for the Vice Chair.
Okey doke. There's someone whose computer may be talking to them. Maybe it's Jim. Could you go on mute for a little bit? Thank you. Okey doke. So we will move on to the Vice Chair nominees. There are two. There is Sarah Ball Johnson, the City Clerk, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Daniel Ivy Soto, the State Senator of New Mexico and current Vice Chair. We'll begin with Ms. Johnson. Sarah, you have 5 minutes.
Hey, hello, everyone. I chose to run for Vice Chair for this great board. I do have a lot of experience in election administration, of course, on the state level back in Kentucky, and then here in Colorado for a number of years. And I do believe it is important in this election environment. Things that are happening, have happened, and will happen as far as elections concerned will fundamentally change the way we conduct elections and we look at elections. And I do feel it's important to have a local perspective, election official perspective on the board. I also want to just give you some background. I'm also serving on the Department of Homeland Security Election Infrastructure Governing Committee since the startup of that. I serve on that. I also serve on some other federal boards and have been very active in associations over the years. I've been on the Board of Advisors almost since the beginning. I did serve on the Standards Board and again on the Board of Advisors for a number of years. I also was around when, I'm dating myself. I don't want to do the math here because I don't want to realize how old I am. But I was also around when HAVA itself was drafted along with multiple other federal legislation and have had a hand in drafting that and putting together laws, the federal laws, and also working in particular on what the Board of Advisors was intended to do from Congressman Ney and Congressman Hoyer's perspective. It did come out of the House side of that great election reform bill. So I am well aware of what the congressional intent was for this board. And like I said, I have worked with the current commissioners and previous commissioners and legislative staff in drafting current legislation and also past legislation. So I do have a broad spectrum of experience in those realms. I also want to point out that I believe this board's main purpose is to blend the election people with the non-election conducting people to get that perspective, because we have the perspective of conducting, but a lot of you have the perspective of being on the voter side or the citizen side outside looking in. And I believe you do have a great perspective and some great information that you can share with all of us election officials. And I think the communication from your governing board of this committee is really important to you as members, that you're allowed the opportunity to suggest committees that need to be created, to serve on committees that are created, and to have your voices heard and your perspective gained, and to give us as election officials, there's quite a few of us on this board, to tell us what you're hearing and what you're seeing, and to have that dialogue. Even though we may not always agree on everything from our perspectives, but I think it's important to have the dialogue. And I really want to increase the communication that goes out to the Board of Advisors and that we have amongst ourselves, not necessarily in a formal board meeting. So my goal really is to create that communication, to get a collaborative approach so that everybody understands what the conduct of election versus the voter side of the election and the policy questions that the EEC is being asked to govern on and rule on, and our legislators and our legislation. I do think that collaborative approach is what we need to do, and that communication is vital. And I do believe that's what I bring to the role as vice chair. And I certainly look forward to your vote, and I appreciate your vote and your consideration of my candidacy for this. So thank you. I think that sums up kind of what my intent was in running.
Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. Now for the current Vice Chair, State Senator Daniel Ivy Soto. Mr. Soto, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and fellow members of the Board of Advisors. So my name is Daniel Ivy Soto, and let me give you just a quick rundown, and then there's really a more important issue beyond the resume, I think, in some ways that I want to talk about. Resume-wise, I am a former state election director here in New Mexico. I was Associate Deputy Secretary of State for Elections, Ethics, and Legal. Was a member of NASED back in the day in terms of doing that. When I left the Secretary of State's office, I became the Executive Director for the County Clerk's affiliate here in New Mexico, and spent a little over a decade as the Executive Director for the County Clerks. So I have the perspective both at the state level as well as at the local level in terms of administration of elections. I currently continue to serve as a technical assistance provider on contract for several of the county clerk offices around the state. So I continue to have that relationship, and I also continue to work very closely with my Secretary of State on a variety of issues. I am a state senator here in New Mexico, and in New Mexico, that's volunteer work. We're the only state where we don't get paid. We don't have any staff. This is truly something that we do because we are interested and we care about what's going on in our state, and so that's how I find myself on this committee right now, because on the Board of Advisors, because I'm one of the representatives for NCSL. Within NCSL, I did serve twice as the national co-chair for our elections and redistricting policy committees. So have that experience in addition. I'm a former member of the Uniform Law Commission, and while on the Uniform Law Commission, I was on the drafting committee for the Uniform Military and Overseas Voters Act, working with the Federal Voting Assistance Program back when Bob Kerry was the director, as well as with the State Department and other stakeholders. I've been, for my work in elections, I've been recognized by Common Cause, by the League of Women Voters. I've also been recognized by our statewide Chamber of Commerce, the Association of Commerce and Industry, the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce, and for some of my election bills, I've gotten the New Mexico First Bipartisanship Award in terms of my approach to how to do things. I also serve right now as the president of the National Hispanic Caucus of State Legislators, and that brings me to the other issue I want to talk about. My family is Cuban. That's the Soto of my last name. My grandfather, after the revolution, was arrested, initially sentenced to death for opposing the revolution, a sentence that ultimately was commuted. And although my grandfather ended up spending almost 12 years in prison in Cuba, and it took him several other years to get out. I did not meet my grandfather in person until I was a teenager. For me, this democracy that we have is personal. What our ability collectively to speak our voice fearlessly, to go into a polling place and cast our vote, is something that my family has suffered for and that I hold very dear in terms of maintaining it in this country and maintaining the strength of our democracy, which is partially is the diffused system that we have. In this regard, it is vitally important that we maintain the diversity on the EAC Board of Advisors in terms of the officers, but that we also maintain people with not just simply a resume and a, you know, I can do these mechanical issues, which is important, vitally important, and which I think I can do as well, but who also has a passion for this democracy rooted in understanding the alternative, understanding how important it is that we have what we have in this country. So for that, I hope I get to continue to serve in this position. I don't take it for granted, and I ask you for your vote, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Ivy Soto. We will now proceed to the vote. Mr. Rayburn?
Thank you.
Excuse me, can I make a comment? This is Barbara Simons. I received a proxy from Mark Ritchie, who was unable to join the call because
No, Ms. Simons, we already, Mr. Ritchie corrected that his proxy was dealt with. We don't need to bring it up right now.
Okay, sorry. Okay, never mind.
It's okay, problem. Okay, Mr. Rayburn, could you please commence with the vote announcement?
Sure. Yep, Stephen, if you'll put up the second poll for vice chair. Similar to before, you should now have a poll pop up on your screen. As Dr. Stark mentioned, some of you may need to click the poll green button at the top if you're on a browser. You should have a vice chair poll with 2 selections, like before. Select the candidate and hit submit. And similarly to before, proxies, those emails should go to Amanda Joyner, and anyone whose poll did not show up or is having technical issues, please also email Amanda Joyner like we did for the chair election. if anyone submitted an email vote and voted in the poll, just please let us know. But otherwise, we're assuming that everyone who sent an email did not also vote in the poll. Okay, has anyone not been able to either vote on the poll or email in their vote? Is anyone having issues or still remaining?
Will we received acknowledgement of our emails?
That we weren't planning on doing that, so I would not anticipate an acknowledgement.
Okay.
But I've just been told that Amanda Joyner is responding back and she is acknowledging, so yes. Mr. Chair, it sounds like there's no one else that needs to vote, so I think at your discretion, we can move on to the third election.
Thank you. If no one has any objection to moving on, we will now move on to the vote for secretary. And even though there is no opposition, I do not want to be accused of overlooking or bias in this one. So if Allison McLaughlin, if you would like to say anything, you have the floor to do so. Otherwise, we will proceed to a voice vote.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman. I do not see the need to belabor things with a lengthy statement. I will say that I appreciated being asked to serve in this role. And I do hope that we are going to have a productive year in the year ahead. We have a lot of energy and enthusiasm among members right now. We did in the Postal Committee, the Special Committee on the Postal Service, that my co-chair is going to be reporting on later in this meeting. And I look forward to that being a harbinger of things to come and of the level of engagement within the board in the year ahead.
And thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Okay. See, rather than do this, do I have a motion to approve Allison McLaughlin as secretary by acclamation?
Mr. Chair,
I
if
would like to make that motion, sir.
Second.
By acclamation.
Okay, I think that you all did it at the same time. Any objections? Seeing none, Allison McLaughlin is elected as secretary with a unanimous vote. Pretty darn good, Allison. We'll now turn this over to the Election Certification Committee, or if they need some additional time, Mr. Rayburn, if you can instruct me how you are ensuring that they receive the results for the purposes of certification.
So the chair of results have been sent to the committee members. Vice chair results are still being put together and have not been sent over yet.
Okay, so we will wait a few minutes until those are done.
Counselor, it sounds like your microphone is a little bit garbly, so I don't know if this is cool.
Yeah, Mr. Rayburn said that the votes are still being tabulated for vice chair. So we will wait until the election certification committee can review those and announce both the chair and vice chair at the same time. So we will just wait a few minutes until Mr. Rayburn tells us they've been done and sent.
Secretary Condos, were you able to submit your proxy vote? And you're on mute, sir.
I did submit, and I just sent a follow-up email. I didn't want to confuse Amanda, but I submitted via Zoom for my vote, and I submitted via email for Secretary Pate.
She just confirmed she received it. Thank you. All right, I've confirmed the results have been sent to the committee. They might need a minute to do their canvassing, but the results have been submitted.
Thank you. Mr. Byrne, whenever you are ready to announce both the results, the floor is yours.
Yeah, we'll need a few minutes. We've not received anything in regards to the vice chair, so we're going to hold until we receive all the information and get a few clarifying answers to some questions.
Thank you, David. I feel like this is preparation for election night.
I was going to say that, but I was afraid it might be a bad omen.
I just think it's reality.
I think we need the poll workers' prayer.
A lot of you will be waiting, but us election authorities, we won't be just sitting and waiting.
I am sure about that.
Mr. Chair, in asking the committee how long they actually need, if they need more than 10 more minutes, I would suggest going to the postal report. But
Mr. Byrne?
Yeah, I'd say we probably need at least 10 more minutes. One question I have, Allison, for the secretary, to report out how many total votes are permitted for the election base. I originally had 28 in attendance, 4 proxies. Is that still correct?
I had 28 in attendance, 4 proxies, but I understood that there was another proxy. I had, Barbara, did you have 1 proxy or 2? You have Larry Norden, or you had Mark Ritchie, or both?
No, I had, Mark Ritchie was sent to me. This is the chair.
So Barbara has 3 votes then, is that correct?
No, just 2.
Just 2.
Just 2. That was my mistake. Sorry.
Mark Ritchie's proxy was to Chairman Yaki?
Yes.
Got it. Then that adds 1 more vote to what I had reported previously.
So you're showing 28 in attendance and 5 proxies. Is that correct?
Correct. That makes the total number of 28 in attendance, 5 proxies, 2 not present.
Always important to verify votes against signatures. Just saying. So,
right.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend going with the postal report, and we will come back to you.
Thank you very much, Florida. So we will now go
Chairman
to.
Yaki, can we use drop boxes to submit our votes?
Yeah, I think we might have to, or drive-bys. We are now going to proceed and go forward to a report from the Special Committee on the USPS that was chaired by Vice Secretary Allison McLaughlin and Tina Barton of Michigan. The report will be given by Ms. Barton.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Great to be with all of you. So on behalf of the committee, we have presented to you what our recommendations are. You should have received those in time to look those over for this meeting. And I want to give credit to Alison for all the hard work that she did on this, as well as all the committee members meeting in a very short time period. So I just want to set the backdrop on this, that as we considered what we were going to recommend, as we considered coming together and what the meeting and the committee was going to be about, we wanted to keep a few things in mind. And that was the fact that, as already has been mentioned, that we're barely over 60 days now before the election, right? So we're at 62-day marker. So we're on a final countdown, certainly, because I think we've all been counting this down for many days now and many months. So in looking at the fact that we knew that we had a very short calendar and time frame to work with, and recognizing the fact too that after this meeting we're going to be going into a holiday weekend, which makes next week an even shorter week, we wanted to keep in mind the capacity and the capability of the EAC and what we were going to be asking of them and what we were going to be recommending. Recognizing too that we wanted to also stay in our lane, if you will, and recommend something that should be coming from the Board of Advisors. We also wanted to contain our direction for the EAC with points that we felt could be realistically implemented by them in a short time frame period. So we wanted to focus on what was most important to us and to do so in a way that was very clear and very concise, and something that, again, that we felt that we were going to be able to give them enough time to be able to carry this task out. So in doing that, I want to recognize all of the members who were on the committee. Obviously, the co-chair, Alison McLaughlin. Thank you, Linda Neindick, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Michael Wynn, Ricky Hatch, Greg Moore, Liz Howard, James Dixon, Neil Kelly, and then Mr. Yaki joined us also, and so did Commissioner Hicks joined us in one of the meetings. So what we're recommending at this time, something again that we feel can be easily implemented, what we were most concerned about in looking at this was that the voters return their ballot in a time frame that allows their vote to be counted. So for instance, looking at the state of Michigan, we just had an August primary. I explained to the committee that I did a time study of the 2 weeks, 14 days after the election to see exactly how many ballots were coming back that were postmarked prior to the election. And we had about 60 ballots just in our community alone that had been postmarked prior. We don't count postmarks in Michigan. It has to be in our possession by 8 p.m. on election day. So recognizing the fact that these are people who, as we looked at this study, the vast majority of these people, their postmark fell within 7 days prior to the election. And as we looked at that, our concern was that while some organizations are recommending 7 days prior to the election that there would be a mail back of absentee ballots, we didn't feel that that was sufficient from what we were seeing and experiencing from election officials across the country. So what we focused on was something that we felt was catchy, and something that could become a hashtag, something that could be used by advocacy groups, something that could also be used by election officials, and the EAC as a promotion tool to recommend that Monday, October 19th would be Mail It Back Monday. And it would be a recommendation that we would do this as a reminder to those who had been holding on to their ballots, waiting, maybe procrastinating, and not sending them back, not necessarily expecting that every single person is going to drop their ballot in the mailbox on that day. But again, it's a trigger and a reminder to them that I need to get my ballot back because I've only got 15 days to do so now. So again, the Mail It Back Monday is one of our first recommendation that we have to encourage voters who've requested a ballot to mail it back on that day. Secondly, we talked about the EAC and its voter education effort, recognizing that there are many sources of information out there and that the EAC is a trusted source and is often a mining source, if you will, of where people can go and look for information about other states and see what their deadlines are. And so we are recommending to the EAC that in this voter education effort that they package their content for sharing nationwide on social media, what emphasizes the variations of critical dates and deadlines necessary for voters to register, receive their ballot, and have their vote counted. Those were the three issues that we felt were of greatest concern when applied to the voter, is for them to know when they could register, how they could register, when and how they can receive their ballot, as well as how they can make sure that their vote is counted. Our third recommendation is that the EAC, and this is kind of more of a pat on the back to them, that we recognize and appreciate the efforts that they're already making in this lane and what they're already doing, that we're asking them to continue to expand their resources for state, local, tribal, and territorial election officials when it comes to voting by mail and absentee voting, including best practices for serving voters with disabilities who vote by mail. I want to, again, like I said, recognize the efforts that the EAC is making. They're putting out some great information. I've noticed that on all their social media platforms, that they're continuing to do that and push that information. And so we want to encourage them to continue to expand that as we go these final 62 days into Election Day. So we have many of the members are here on this call. If we would like to open this up to discussion, I'm sure Alisoon and the rest of the committee would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Allison, would you like to make any comments as co-chair? And then I'd like to ask any of the committee members who were a part of the discussions to feel free to contribute as well.
Tina conveyed the report. It was really a great discussion. We had intended to meet once, and we were having such a fruitful discussion that we decided to meet a second time in order to talk the issues through further. And I really felt it was a very engaging discussion. Tina has captured it. The one piece that I would merely emphasize is that at this point, our operational plans are in place for the election, and there's a real emphasis on the assistance that the EAC can provide us in the voter education lane. That is, sort of the primary emphasis of what, as far as election officials are concerned, that, we really appreciate the EAC's platform and, sort of bully pulpit on these things. And this thorny issue of voters having inaccurate information for themselves, social media sharing, where people are getting information from their sister's Facebook post in another state is, probably the biggest challenge that we're all facing on a voter education standpoint at this point. And so that's why the emphasis of our second recommendation is on working with the EAC, using the platform that the EAC uniquely has as the national trusted source of information on this, to help us cut through that noise of people trying to help each other out and sharing very well-intentioned, helpful information that is not appropriate to their jurisdiction. And we're eager to work with the EAC on how we can message those challenges and help get that information out there and shared in a way that the EAC can, in a way that only the EAC can do.
Great. Any other committee members? Ricky, Linda, Michael, any of you folks? Liz? If any of you would like to speak, feel free.
Well, this is Liz. I just want to reiterate appreciation to the EAC and the staff for putting out a lot of great information and tremendous appreciation for putting together the National Poll Worker Recruitment Day, which was such a huge success. I am most excited about the Mail It Back Monday effort. I think especially that is, you know, Alison was mentioning the challenges with the state-specific information. I think the Mail It Back Monday campaign is something that is manageable for the EAC to the extent that it is one message that can apply to all voters across the country. And I mentioned this on our subcommittee meeting, but the success of Mail It Back Monday is going to depend upon the people on this subcommittee pitching in. We know that the EAC is underfunded, doing amazing work under the current circumstances. So just a reminder and a request that everybody pitch in to help out with Mail It Back Monday.
Linda, would you like to say something?
And,
Mike? Greg?
Yeah, this is Greg Moore. Just wanted to say again, the importance of the Mail It Back Monday being a hashtag or some type of popular message that can be sent around the country by allied organizations like the civil rights community, student organizations, others. It's a very important tool to have the EAC serve as the leading body, helping to move this message out and to relieve some of this pressure that might be on the post office. So we do believe this is a good effort, and I appreciate being asked to be a part of the committee to help create the program. Thanks.
I don't know if it's beneficial to the EAC or not, but it seemed like what I saw come across for the National Poll Worker Recruitment Day came from, you know, our Secretary of State in Missouri. And, you know, if EAC could just push that Mail It Back Monday out to those Secretary of States, then they can disseminate it. You know, maybe that gets it closer to the voters in the proper jurisdictions.
Thank you, Linda. Ricky, did you have something?
No, everyone's covered everything. It's just a reminder of how different each state and often counties are across the country. So it's really hard to get a good common denominator. And I appreciate the EAC's efforts, as well as Alison and Tina and the whole committee in trying to come up with something that was meaningful, but didn't trample or give incorrect information.
And Michael, did you, were you looking like you were reaching for the mute button, unmute button? Michael,
I just want to echo, you know, the same thing. You know, everyone, you know, you guys are an incredibly bright group of individuals. And I just really want to thank the EAC and also the Postal Committee. You guys just do a tremendous job and a great benefit to us election administrators. You make our job a little bit easier, so I appreciate that. So thank you.
And Jim, did you have something?
Yes, I just wanted to say that we're part of a 19 organization, national organization on disability, working on accessible voting, and we're very excited about Mail It Back Monday, and we're ready to push out through our networks the recommendations that we hope will come from the EAC.
Well, great. Any comments from other members?
I have a concern. May I speak?
Yes.
Thanks. So first of all, I really appreciate the work that the subcommittee did, and I don't want to second guess the deliberations that you undertook, but I'm really frightened by the idea of Mail It Back Monday. That could result probably in an increase in outgoing mail of a factor of 20 to 50 that the U.S. Post Office will need to deal with on that particular day. It could conceivably result in overflowing mailboxes outgoing, given Postmaster General DeJoy's prohibition on having more than one mail delivery trip per day. There could conceivably be a similar prohibition on collecting mail more than one trip a day. That could result in ballots staying in post boxes if they were available. I'm just really concerned about the post office's ability to deal with a very large bolus of mail all arriving on the same day. And so my suggestion would be, rather than trying to get everyone to mail it back on that day, to get everyone to mail it back by that day. so that things are actually spread out over time, given the post office.
I'll go ahead
has to deal
and
with it.
start off fielding that one.
Sorry?
I think Allison was talking to someone else. Any other comments from members of the BOA?
No, we just.
Allison, are you supposed to be on mute or not supposed to be on mute? Okay, I think she's supposed to be on mute. Any other comments from members? One thing that
Mr. Yaki,
yes.
May I address Dr. Stark's concerns?
Absolutely, Ms. Martin, please.
Dr. Stark did relay those concerns. I would just like to point out, and one of the points even that I made to him, I recognize what his concerns are. At the same time, I think every state has different timelines at which they actually send out their ballots or make their absentee ballots available. So in Michigan, for instance, that date is September 24th for this election cycle. We typically see a large percentage of our ballots come back the first 2 weeks of having received those ballots or those ballots being available. So by the middle of October, we have a large percentage of our ballots back. While I recognize the fact that we are using Mail It Back Monday as a slogan, I would like to say that it's also a reminder to those who have procrastinated, to those maybe who are holding on to it, that they need to get their ballot in within that 15-day time period, and that the deadline is closing in on them. I do not expect the masses to drop on that particular day. I mean, if they do, that's fantastic. I think, then I have much more hope of them returning their ballot 15 days prior that it's going to get to me than I do for them returning their ballot 6 or 5 days prior. Because like I just said, I experienced in the August election where a significant number of the ballots that were returned too late to even be counted were done so with a postmark of 7 days and under. So I think this is more of a reminder of there's a time clock that's ticking, and you have an extra week here, what we're saying compared to what I think even the post office recommended 7 days. I don't feel like 7 days is sufficient, and I feel like 15 days gives a better, actually realistic time frame for mail to actually reach its intended target.
Great.
Chime in again. So I completely agree with the concerns, and I understand that first-class mail is now often taking weeks to arrive. So getting people to mail back their ballots as soon as possible is absolutely a goal that I endorse. My concern is simply anything that encourages people to wait until just 2 weeks before, rather than sending things back as soon as they have the opportunity to review and vote their ballots.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
I appreciate your Mr. Yes.
Yes, one observation on it. We participated for several years in National Voter Registration Day, and it was my impression that this would be similar to that we pick a date to encourage people to make sure their ballots are in by that date. And so I do support getting them in as soon as possible. We're certainly pushing that out, but the idea is to be like National Voter Registration Day. It's a reminder. It's a safe harbor day to prevent the rush or the things that Dr. Stark is concerned about happening 2 weeks later. So I think if it's going to happen, I'd rather it happen on the 19th of October than the 3rd or 2nd of November.
Great. Any other comments from folks? What I'd like to do is to have the Board of Advisors adopt this committee report and forward it to the EAC. Otherwise, it just kind of stays with us. And I think that a point of what Allison and Tina did and the members of the committee was to, especially with Mail It Back Monday, was to create something that we would transmit to the EAC for their official consideration in our role as advisors. Is there any objection to adopting and forwarding this report to the EAC? See none, so ordered. Mr. Byrne, how are we doing on the vote count, and do we need to start bringing in the lawyers?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So we're just looking to get its email traffic going through DOD, DOJ, and other firewalls. So we're just trying to get one of the issues is my outbox was full of space, and so I had one of them was stuck in there. So I had to purge a few emails, and so we're good to go. Just stand by for a moment, please.
Okay. Anybody want to hum the Jeopardy theme? Dun, dun, dun.
Commissioner Hicks, I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow afternoon in Missouri.
That's this afternoon.
Oh, it is this afternoon, isn't it? You're gonna have to hurry. Just right after our governor speaks, so no pressure.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
She needs to get an updated schedule, Tom.
Mr. Hatch just sent a question to everyone, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Hatch, because we are stalling for time, I think you should do this yourself, live and on tape.
Okay. Well, it's you kind of have to see it written, but why did the Three Stooges win the election? They had momentum.
Oh.
Okay. So that fell flat like a joke at the
No,
convention.
it's hysterical.
You're like the rest of us, Ricky. You better stick to your day job.
That's right.
I mean, ask Mr. Rayburn if he sent the results by mail, U.S. mail.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, we'll stand by. I'm just waiting on concurrence from one of the committee members based on the email traffic, I think, so we can report out through unanimous consent that we're all seeing the same thing.
Okay.
You can continue to inject your humor, though, if you like.
I think there's also another question. Someone has to leave the meeting, and we will ensure that someone either gives you a call or sends an email with the results. And Mr. Hatch has another joke for us.
Mr. Hatch, please proceed.
Okay, so this one's in honor of Mr. Ivy Soto. Did you hear the one about the senator who won his election despite not having any thumbs? He ran unopposed.
Oh, that's better and bad. I think Mr. Hatch has the book for 1,001 jokes for election officials somewhere in his office. He's just pulling them out one by one. Mr. Byrne, do we have concurrence?
One moment, please.
Any more dad jokes?
Okay, let's take a look at everyone's backgrounds here and see what's going on. Let's see, Jim is in the middle of the ocean. That's great. Some people are in their offices. I thought I saw Kathy. Well, Kathy's gone, but she was in the forest. Okay, Tom Hicks gets medals for having the U.S. flag. Oh no, Jim does too. Jim does too. Philip looks like he just came in from being a biker on a trail.
It's a cold morning here in the East Bay.
And Ricky, what is your background? Are you in your office, or where are you?
It's a quiz for everybody to see if you can think back to your childhood and remember what this is.
Don't you recognize that, Michael?
I know. Am I wrong with thinking that is one of my favorite neighborhoods?
Rogers.
Yeah.
You are correct.
I'm sort of surprised that Ricky isn't in his slippers and his sweater, though, given his location.
Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to report out the results from the Election Certification Committee.
Mr. Byrne, the floor is yours.
Okay, sorry for that. Just know
Yeah,
that
we're good.
having worked in Florida elections, we want to be very accurate, regardless if it takes 36 days or not. So let me just offer that as chair of the Election Certification Committee, the following is the official results for the next term for the EAC Board of Advisors chairperson, with 28 in-person votes cast, 5 proxies as certified by the secretary for a total count of 33 votes. Jim Condos received 12 votes cast. Mr. Daniel Yaki received 21 votes cast. So based on the Board of
Yaki?
Advisors bylaws, Daniel
Did you
Yaki.
just call me Daniel? Did you just call me Daniel Yaki, David?
I sure did. Sorry. Mr. Yaki is duly elected based on a plurality.
Thank you very much.
And for vice chair, we have the official results indicating based on the 28 in-person votes cast, 5 proxies, total vote potential of 33 votes. We have 19 votes cast for Sarah Ball Johnson and 13 for Daniel Ivy Soto.
Congratulations, Sarah.
Thank you very much for the results.
Thank you.
The results have been sent to both legal counsels for the EAC as well.
Okay.
With that, I would like to swear in the new officers.
Yeah, this goes in the I'm not going to stand up thing for.
No standing, please. If you raise your right hand.
Oops, hang on. All right.
Congratulations,
All right.
Sarah. Congratulations, Allison.
As Allison, okay. I state your name.
I state your
I,
name.
Allison McLaughlin,
I, Michael
Do
Yaki.
solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
I will support
that I
and defend the
support
Constitution of the United
defend the
States
Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies,
against all
foreign and
enemies,
domestic.
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
I will
that I will bear true faith and
to the
allegiance
same.
to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
That I take
that I
this
take this obligation
I take this
freely,
obligation freely
without any mental reservations
without any mental
without any mental
reservations
reservations
or purpose of evasion,
or
or
purpose of
purpose
evasion,
of evasion,
and that I will
and that I will
and that I will
well and faithfully discharge
well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the
duties of the
duties
office
of the office
on which I'm about to enter.
on
which
which
I'm
I am about to
So
enter.
help me God.
Help me God.
Help me God.
All right. Thank you.
So help
There
me
we
God.
go.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, Commissioner Hicks, any closing remarks?
Yes, I want to thank you all for participating today. I believe this is one of the highest board participation rates we've ever had. I also want to thank everyone for recognizing National Poll Worker Recruitment Day. As it was stated, yesterday was that day. It was a marker. It doesn't mean that it has to be the end. So if you can emphasize that more on social media, that we need more poll workers, please do so. I want to thank everyone who ran for office, knowing that all of you can participate in the Board of Advisors. And I look forward to working with you all, whether or not you're on the board, executive board or not. You all play a vital role, and that we want to make sure that this election runs as smoothly as possible. So with that, I want to say remain safe, remain healthy, and make sure you vote and make sure you encourage others to vote. So with that, I want to turn it back on over to the chair for adjournment.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hicks. I want to thank all the members for their continued support and look forward to working with each and every one of you closely. We're going to, as I said, continue working on creating a much more inclusive, responsible, and active BOA with your participation, and I know it's going to be there. And have a safe Labor Day. Have a great election day. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Without objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
The American people can be confident that this president is in remarkable good health and
It's just a TV.
Oh.
Someone has their mic on. That's just a TV.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye now.